Hey guys, it's Eric. Today I'm going to be answering a question that I get often. How many times are you supposed to empty your ostomy bag? So this question and the answer to it is going to vary from person to person. Now I'm going to give you just some basic numbers, but again, don't be alarmed if this doesn't match exactly your own situation. But when we're talking about emptying your bag, we have to make a couple of assumptions here. Most people, most manufacturers, most stoma nurses will recommend emptying your bag when it's about a third full. Now there are many reasons for this. From a practical standpoint, when your bag starts to get really full, it gets kind of awkward to move around, it sticks out under your clothing, it can increase the potential for leaks. So you do want to empty it at a reasonable level. But it also means that you might be going to the bathroom more often. Now, what you're eating is also going to make a huge difference to the amount of times you're emptying your bag. Whether or not you're drinking coffee, for example, which seems to stimulate bowel movements in a lot of people, that's going to have an effect on whether or not you're emptying your bag more often. Whether you eat huge meals like I tend to throughout the day, that's definitely going to have an impact. You know, what goes in has to come out eventually. And if you're eating a lot of very fibrous foods, a lot of plant matter like I do, that's going to increase the bulk even more. Now, if you have an ileostomy or someone who has a short bowel, so that could include a jejunostomy, and I hope I didn't butcher that, but if you have either of those types of ostomies, then chances are you're going to have a higher output stoma versus someone with a colostomy, for example. Now, most colostomates and those who don't irrigate might be emptying their bag maybe once or twice a day. And they would empty at about the same frequency that they would have regular bowel movements through their bottom end normally, so before surgery. And that's usually pretty common. Now, for someone who irrigates their stoma with a colostomy, that may be delayed for a day or two. And that's totally done intentionally. So you would be irrigating your stoma for the explicit purpose of emptying it when you want and having it empty or having your bowel empty for a prolonged period of time. Now, if you have an ileostomy, it is quite normal to empty your bag 7 to 9 times a day. Don't be alarmed if you're emptying it, 9 times and you're thinking maybe there's something wrong. Maybe it relates to before you had your surgery and you were always in the bathroom. Don't be alarmed. Because there's no colon to absorb any excess fluid from your stool, you're going to have a lot more stuff that has to pass through, and unfortunately it's all going to collect much sooner than it would if you had a colostomy after it's already emptied all that water out of your stool. So don't be alarmed by that. Now, for some people who have a shorter bowel, you may be emptying even more times, and your bag might be filling more often, and reaching that maximum line more frequently. Now, that could be totally normal. However, it's important to keep an eye on your intake. You want to make sure that you're getting enough fluids to compensate for the loss. And for some people, if they're not drinking enough and having a lot of output, they may end up in the hospital due to dehydration or other issues like that. So it's a pretty serious note, and you shouldn't ignore that. Now, I know some ostomates, specifically more the ileostomates and those with short bowel or high output stomas, some of them will use medication to slow down their bowels and hopefully give the food enough time to be absorbed properly before it actually exits out as stool. While other people might just change their diet. So, for example, introducing more starchy foods may thicken up that output and slow it down and slow that transit time down. Now, if you were to fast or if you were to have less than your typical meals in a day, you might notice that you can go many hours without having to empty your bag. Now, while I don't encourage you doing this because you should still be eating throughout the day, I sometimes use this strategy in very specific situations. So as an example, if I know I'm going to be having a flight, perhaps in the morning, then I may not eat after dinner time the night before. And then that way I know, I'll have a few bag empties maybe throughout the late evening and morning, But after that, I'm pretty safe to assume that I'm not going to have to empty my bag for most of the day after that. So that's about it. I hope that answers the question. Don't be too alarmed unless your output is more than your input. But other than that, you know, it's going to depend on multiple factors. So don't be too stir crazy of whether or not you're emptying your bag too often or maybe not emptying it enough. Take care, guys. I'll see you in the next video. And if you have a question you'd like me to answer, leave it in the comment section below. Take care.